So another selection pack just dropped, and we're gonna be making an update to the tier list that I made just a little over a week ago, after the previous selection pack with the bonfire, the unchained cards, the labyrinth arias, all that stuff dropped. That's a crazy ban list. So I'll go over that tier list a little quickly here. If you want my full reasoning and why everything is why every deck is placed in any position here or any tier, to go watch that video. I'll link it for my full reasoning. And again, if there's any decks that you think are missing from here, feel free to let me know in the comments and bring them up, and I'll try to respond to as many comments as I can. So first off, we have Snake Eyes, which is people argue whether it's just tier 0.5 or tier 1 or tier 0 or whatever. Well, everyone just agrees that this is by far and away the best deck, so it's in a tier on its own. And then the next tier down, which we'll call it tier 2, because the top tier, this is either tier 1 or tier 0.5, as most people seem to agree on. So in tier 2 we have Super Heavy Samurai, Labyrinth, and Branded. And the next tier down, tier 3, we have Kashira and Vanquish Soul, which in my opinion are the two best shifter decks. And I know maybe Kashira can drop down a little bit because it lost yet another starter on this ban list thanks to the Unicorn. Thanks a lot, Snake Eyes, but it did get a birth back, so it's okay. It's still a competent deck, I feel, especially given that shifters in the game. Then we have the two best Cybers decks, Administer and Mathmech. This just runs a ton of hand traps, one card combos, and makes pretty formidable boards that are also backed up by their tons of hand traps. Then the next few decks. So tier 3, the order of the decks in tier 3 I think could go really any way. Like a lot of these decks are just relatively close to each other, and you could put any of these decks in any position here, to be honest, and I could see an argument for it. So Unchained, I don't know where to put it. It could be here, it could be the best deck in tier 3. I could see it all the way down to the bottom tier 3. I don't really know, and frankly there's not much of a sample size yet in Master Duel of how well this deck does, especially since OCG land really doesn't like Unchained, so hardly any of them even plays it, which is why I despite it being very popular among the Western players, I haven't ran into a lot of Unchained on ladder yet since its release. But I'm willing to respect it and saying that it's fine. In theory, it performs really well. It's just not good into max seed. But if you don't get max seed, it's a good deck. And then you have Volcanic, which is the Snake Eyes with a bunch of bricks in it, and maybe it's a little inconsistent there, but it can FTK. Then you have Lyrilisk, which also uses the Snake Eye engine as a one-card Lyrilisk combo. You have, another fire deck that runs the Snake Eyes, that runs the Diabellstar engine, not the Snake Eyes engine, but it does run Diabellstar engine because it has level 1, there's a level 1 Fire Warrior Infernova Knight, and it puts up another FTK board going first. I think the deck that wins the highest when it resolves its combo is Infernova Knight, according to the statistics. Just the Link Charles, when that summon, has the highest win rate, according to the in-game stats. Then these next decks can really go either way. I don't really know the proper order for these. This Live Twin Sprite just runs a bunch of hand traps, probably the best Sprite variant you can play right now. That or Tri-Brigade Sprite. Although Tri-Brigade Sprite runs a bit more bricks in it, but it has a higher ceiling. TGs, which is literally just Snake Eyes plus Bellstar plus a lot of hand traps that can Calamity Lock you. So how bad can a deck like that with a bunch of hand traps really be? Dragon Link. I think Bystials were very good. This format, after this selection pack, Bystials might be a bit worse, so that's why we have. You can consider Dragon Link, maybe it goes down after this selection pack, because some of the new release decks don't care about Bystials as much. But I think Dragon Link is still solid. If you don't believe me, go watch the video I just made on it. Down on Morphia, you go first, you auto win tier elements. So tier elements, the reason I put it down here was because Cashier Unicorn was fucking everywhere, and obviously Cashier Unicorn kind of screws your Kid Kalos. But if there's less Cashier Unicorn, then if you don't see Cashier Unicorn, I actually think Caraman might even be way better. Might even put it up here above this stuff. And with Unicorn going to 2, you should theoretically run against Unicorn less often. That's the biggest concern, honestly, with Trin. It's not even really the meta. It's just that the tech staple cards that everyone runs kind of screwed over tiers. But yeah, you tier could be like anywhere, any spot in tier 3 as well, along with like every other deck in this tier. Then Rogue, Resonator, still no Horus cards, but it's a solid rogue deck, I guess, and it's somewhat popular. Stun, Troll Despair, we have Micro and Moye, and then this section here is these are just runic decks. This is just the section for the runic decks, the bottom of Rogue. So like you have Naturia for higher, Earthbound, like straight up runic sprite, and Bestial runic, and I forgot one when I disbanded last time when I did this tier list last time, which was Generator runic. So yeah, my bad, whoopsie. I'll take that L instead of Dire. The way this plays is this plays not like a runic deck though. Like it's unlike the other runic decks, this deck doesn't focus on Fountain and drawing cards because Generator already has a better field spell than Fountain in its archetype, and it's really just using runic spells as level 9 extenders to make level 9 Xyz plays. And you could rank 9 Xyz plays, and you can like hand loop with Winter Blackner and all that stuff. So I don't know if the less reliance on runic makes this better in this format, because you don't, runics are so heavily limited in Master Duel. But if you don't care about runics as much, you might be better off. Or I don't know if it's worse because it's Generator. But yeah, you could put Generator runics somewhere along the runic decks. And the decks that I would not recommend, well, most decks that I didn't bring up that aren't on this tier list, I think would fall somewhere between like low Rogue and lower. But Battling Boxers as a pure deck, probably not. Most Armored Xyz variants, especially Sharks, because there's no Toad, I don't have much confidence in. Heroes just makes Darklaw, which is a worse Arise Heart. Exorcister, which also I believe is just a worse Kashtira, because it's a shifter deck, but Kashtira monsters are more threatening than Exorcister monsters, and again, Arise Heart is better than any Xyz that Exorcisters puts up. And Flunder these nuts. All my opponent, if you're my opponent playing against me, Flunder should be up here because they always draw Rabina plus Advent. But if you're an average player, you're not gonna draw good hands of blue a lot of the time because it's half the deck is literally on the ban list. So that's why I wouldn't recommend it. And now onto the part everyone's waiting for, the new decks, or the decks that got new support. So we'll start with Monadium, because this deck is just the simplest. It got Visa Samsara. That's it. It's Visa Samsara. It's just another starter. Samsara counts as a Visa Starfrost, so you can use it to go into Lightheart, and then that's like most of a full combo. It has the right level and stats if you normal summon it, so you can use it to summon Meek. It's recycles. It extends your combos. It helps going second sometimes. A lot of times, since you can shuffle back your visas after you've used them. It's like so on. It's the deck's gotten better. It still puts up a very unbreakable board going first as well, and it's very good at going first. Going second, Samsara helps with the deck going second. At a deck that's already quite proficient at going second, so it's just having another extender is nice. Mikanko. Okay, so Mikanko got Arahime, which is like a dog shit ritual that nobody actually plays Mikanko runs. But wasn't mentioned, and we didn't know what we were gonna get, but we got Spirit Walk, which is like it's the suck trap. It's like what's it called? It's like the sprite double that trap card, whatever. It basically equips a monster to your Mikanko monster, and I still don't like blind seconding, I'm gonna be honest, but if the Duelist Cup results are anything to show, like the one Mikanko deck that top 100 Duelist Cup was a going first Mikanko build with Floodgates. So maybe in fact the way to play Mikanko is not a blind second variant, but maybe it is a going first variant that runs Floodgates, and also with the addition of Spirit Walk gives you another layer of disruption. Maybe they're onto something. Like, we don't have Ken and Gen yet. We can't really do the Acid Golem Isolde lock, but with Spirit Walk, with you do put up a monster with targeting and destruction protection, which is hard to deal with, especially if you're playing a going first build with a bunch of floodgates. So yeah, maybe going first Mikanko is actually the goo, and that's probably, if it is, then it's definitely unexplored in this meta. So I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt that it might be better than what it is. Because if it's just going second, I don't trust Mikanko going second. I don't trust any deck to blind second this format. It's just not. It's too hard to win against Snake Eyes' infinite grind game going second, along with all their non-engine after they put up a board already. Oh yeah, Ultra Guys. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know much about Ultra Guys. I think maybe one of the few people that knows about what the support cards do for Ultra Guys' pack. I don't think it's enough to bring the deck into like any sort of relevant meta angle or anything, and it kind of makes the deck a combo deck, which is also taking away the strength of Ultraggeist in that it was a back row deck. So therefore, a lot of non-engine people run, like a lot of hand traps, do not interact with most of your deck because you're just gonna set 5 back row, and then good luck having a bunch of dead Veilers and like imperms in hand while I activate my trap cards that you can't interact with, and then I'll grind you that way. But if you turn yourself into a combo deck, then you put yourself vulnerable to the very non-engine that you were rendering like useless before. So I don't know if the support or the way you build your deck now to make it more of a combo build actually makes Ultra Guys that much better. Maybe a little bit, but it's like, I'm still feeling like if you're gonna play a deck like Ultra Guys, that it's still best to just go for the anti-meta like back row approach and just really play at a different axis than most decks and not make it turn into like mid-range combo deck. And evils. So did you know that evils have a circular? Like, go read this card. Go read Evil Sword Leos. This card is literally circular. If it was it's a bit worse because it doesn't send for cost. It sends for effect. Like, who'd have thought? But it's I don't know. I don't think pure evil is just gonna do any. Like, obviously, I don't think the pure deck is really that good because it's too easily interruptible. You can actually hit Leos with disruption and hand traps. But some people have been talking about you could run this with Snake Eyes because it's a fire deck. Because why wouldn't you, right? If you could run Snake Eyes in your deck, why wouldn't you, right? That doesn't that make your deck so much better? So on the very fact alone that this is a deck that synergizes with the Snake Eyes cards, and you see other decks up here, I put up here almost for the sole reason that they synergize with the best engine in the game. TGs can synergize with the Snake Eyes and Diabellstar cards. Clearless synergizes with Diabellstar with Snake Eyes cards. Volcanics, whoops, I'm not messing up my order. Volcanics synergizes with Snake Eyes cards and Diabellstar cards. So like, a lot of these decks just got a boost because they can pair with the best end in the game. So Evils might not be an exception to that. Maybe there is something. I was gonna put them here, but then I realized their attribute, and then I just talked to some people, and it's like, this deck can actually do some stuff. Obviously, any Snake Eyes deck that's not pure Snake Eyes, it's gonna be worse than pure Snake Eyes. Like, you're running a worse Snake Eyes deck, but you're probably running a better variant of whatever deck you were playing in the first place. So maybe that's it. Because these cards, the non-Snake Eyes cards, are just they're kind of bricks. They're like cards. There are worse cards to draw than the actual Snake Eyes cards, but like you in a format like this where like one deck is so dominant, you'll take what you can get. And Pearly. Okay, so Pearly is actually, I think Pearly is being severely underrated. I think Pearly might be one of the decks. I put it in Rogue before because with just one Delicious, it couldn't really do anything. But I think Pearly has a chance to shoot up into tier 3, and or shoot up into the middle of all of these decks right here, like right smack in the middle, like just one tier below like some of the best decks in the game. And I say this because the E Pearly Noir, the baby Noir, actually just makes such a huge difference, because now it makes your Pearly Happy Memory guaranteed to hit a good card. Before, when Delicious was at 1 and we didn't have Noir, or when we didn't have a baby Noir, the only way to really facilitate making a E Pearly Noir or X Pearly Noir on turn 1 is if you access Delicious Memory. And with it being limited, you only had a 33% chance to add it off of My Friend. So that's not consistent at all. But now, Sleeping Memory is still at 3 in Master Duel, and you need Sleeping Memory to make E Pearly Noir. So with 3 copies of 3 Sleeping Memory, you're now guaranteed to hit a good Pearly Quick Play off of My Friend. So the deck consistently just shoots way up. And people aren't playing a lot of the cards that are good against Pearly. Like, Pearly is a deck that was, against in the TCG, it was easy to side against. There's a lot of hate cards for it. But nobody's really playing stuff like Book of Moons or like even Xyz Encore in Master Duel, because the format's too diverse to justify it. And if they're not playing the direct outs and the direct counters to Pearly, this deck is super hella annoying. Because obviously you have the unaffected towers, but now with Sleeping Memory and E Pearly Noir, you're also consistently drawing 2, or not even 2, you're just consistently drawing 4, maybe even 6 cards a turn during your standby phase. Which, this is a format where Maxi exists. So imagine digging 4 to 6 cards deeper and just digging into Maxi every game, along with whatever other hand traps you can draw into. Plus having an unaffected towers on a turn that spins 3 cards. You know, that's like, honestly, the deck feels really strong. And a lot of people are saying, well, you know, doesn't Snake Eyes just counter this deck? You know, Snake Eyes just adds Cara, right? And then there goes your Noir. Well, theoretically, maybe, but at the same time, if you know that the best deck in the game is capable of playing Cara, you as the Pearly player can adjust your lines in a way to where you don't lose as hard to Cara. First of all, if Snake Eyes adds Cara off Snake Eyes Ash instead of Popular, I think you're pretty happy. Like, you're foregoing your 1 card combo just to add a card to deal with the board. And 2, if you use Cara, because of My Friend, you just get all your quick play spells back. So you have infinite follow-up on the next turn. After, keeping in mind, you probably drew at least 4 cards during the standby phase, so you have a full hand of just like non-engine hand traps, maxis, and stuff. And then you just add your entire Pearly spell lineup back to your hand as well after getting Cara. Like, if you don't die that turn, like, the game is over. And there's an easy way to prevent yourself from dying in Pearly, and that's just making Ensembled Nightingale, the rank 1 Lyralist that prevents you from taking damage. Like, I think that's probably the safest board you as the Pearly player can make this format, which is going to be a Noir, either the big Noir or the baby Noir with a Eep set plus the rank 1 Lyralist that prevents you from taking damage. That way, you just draw a ton of cards, you have guaranteed follow-up, and you're not going to die. Even when the best decks are just Cara. So, be on the lookout for Pearly. I think a lot of people already have this. If they didn't dismantle Pearly, they'd probably already have the Pearly cards too. So, I think Pearly is being a bit underrated right now. I think it's going to be a very solid deck in this meta. And speaking of another solid deck, so Rescue Ace. Probably the best fire deck now that's not just pure Snake Eyes. Obviously, I think pure Snake Eyes is still better than Rescue Ace, but now you finally have a Preventer and Emergency. Now the deck is finally full, well, almost full. I will say there's one crucial card that's missing for Rescue Ace right now, and that's SP Little Knight, which, if you know what that card does, you might be thinking, well, why is that a Rescue Ace? Doesn't every deck play SP Little Knight? Yes, but Rescue Ace is probably a deck that actually relies on SP the most. In fact, it's one of the few decks that runs multiple copies of SP extra deck, and it's not because of extravagance or pots like that. Rescues actually uses too, because it's the way you play around getting imperm. Because the deck, there is a decent choke point with Rescue Ace right now, which is you can Valor or imperm the Turbulence, and if you do that, then you can't set your 4 traps. Then that's the main win con of Rescue Ace is getting Turbulence to set your 4 Rescue Ace traps from your deck. Which, by the way, that's another thing with Rescue Ace. Those spell and traps are kind of bricks because you don't want to draw them. You can just set them. So why would you want to draw them in your hand, right? That's another thing. Rescue Ace runs a lot more bricks than pure Snake Eyes. But the way to dodge Imperm in Rescue Ace is having an SP with a Turbulence out. That way, they can't chain Imperm to your Turbulence effect, because then you would just chain SP to dodge the Imperm. So they would have to preemptively fire off the Imperm on your Turbulence. And if they do that, you just link off the SP and the Turbulence into a Promethean Princess. Princess revive the Turbulence. And then because you haven't used the once per turn effect of Turbulence yet, because they have to fire off the Imperm preemptively, you can still use the Turbulence to set all your spell traps. And that way, you play around Imperm that way, and it forces your opponent to have 2 effect negations to stop your Turbulence. Without SP, I'm not sure if there's a line to do that consistently now, so maybe you're a bit weaker to hand traps. I know Emergency technically can also be used to dodge Infirm, but most of the time I think you're going to need Emergency to actually get your plays going and using it as a starter and not just as a way to dodge Infirm in the first place. So it's still, don't get me wrong, it's still good. Again, it's the best fire deck besides Snake Eyes. You can maybe even argue that it's among the best decks. Like it's a higher tier than like this huge group of decks right here, since it also is. People have said it's better into Max C than pure Snake Eyes, which I can see it. If you can just get Turbulence out after getting Max Seed, that's just one summon, and then you can set your traps that way. It's solid. I don't think it's gonna eclipse these decks up here, but it's definitely the newest deck with the most potential from the new packs. And lastly, we have Chimera. So besides Konami making this deck incredibly fucking expensive for no goddamn reason, I was really excited to test this out. If it was reasonable, and with 7 required URs from the new pack, it's a bit less than reasonable in my opinion. And also, the sad thing about Chimera is, so the most popular way to run Chimera is branded Chimera. And as you know, the brand engine in Master Duel is just absolutely hit to the ground. Brand Fusion is a 1 and brand opening is 1. And the even sadder part is, those hits hurt Chimera way more than they hurt regular branded. Because regular branded doesn't care as much about having a limited brand fusion or limited opening. They have 10,000 ways to search branded fusion anyways. Branded Chimera can't use most of those ways to search branded fusion. It has to either hard draw branded fusion or it needs to use branded opening, because you can't summon Alibur, you can't summon stuff like Kit or Keeper of Dragon Magic or stuff like that to search branded fusion, because Chimera needs its normal summon. You need to normal summon Mirror Swordsman. That's your 1-card starter. So if you normal summon something like an Alibur that brand fusion, then you can't do your Chimera plays because you've already used your normal summon. Then how are you gonna get Mirror Swordsman on the field, right? You're gonna need like a 3-card combo with Chimera fusion and stuff like that after normal summon the Alibur to get to your engine. So it's because of the limitation of the branded engine and the fact that Chimera just doesn't have ways to actual real ways to search brand fusion, and also Pot of Prosperity is also at 1. So like this deck just lost 3 of its best starters in opening fusion and Pot of Prosperity, straight up. So like it's not like the deck is even that great. Like this is a mid-range deck, right? This is a 1-card combo. Unlike other fusion decks, this is a 1-card combo mid-range deck that puts up like a hand rip and maybe like 2 or 3 interruptions at most, and then plays a ton of hand traps. And that's kind of it. It doesn't put up an unbreakable board. It doesn't put up even any real negates. It just like it hand rips for 1. You make Guardian Chimera for a pop, and then you have a monster negate with Mirror Swordsman engraved, and that's most of your disruption. And you have a lot of follow up, but yeah, it's just the branded hits really do hurt branded Chimera quite a lot. And I've been testing builds, well, like on different clients, and like trying to see ways to make up for the consistency. So if anyone has ideas, let me know. And that's like the most popular way to play Chimera, which is with the branded, and obviously with the limitations of brand engine, that hurts. The other way to play Chimera is with Runics, and you all know the state of the Runic engine in Master Duel. Like that's arguably hit even harder than the branded engine. So like the 2 sub engines that Chimera pairs the best with are just nerfed the shit in Master Duel, which means that unfortunately I don't have much faith in the Chimera deck. It's a shame, because this is like an incredibly healthy deck for the game. This deck doesn't do anything toxic whatsoever. It doesn't even calamity lock like half these decks in tier 3. It doesn't put up like unaffected towers or anything. It doesn't put up negates. It's interactive. It runs it runs non-engine. It's just it's too fair right now. Even if it was at full power, if brand engine was not hit, it would be still too fair for the given format, because it just cannot compete with Snake Eyes under any circumstance. But the fact that it also comes this nerfed is a bit sad. I will say that. I don't. Yeah. Man. Well, there you have it. That's this is what the tier list is, in my opinion, it's gonna look like now, post this new selection pack and this new ban list. And of course, let me know if you agree or disagree, and let me know about all the other decks that I forgot, because I'm sure I did forget quite a few.